No, I was just saying that it was good to hear my High Commissioner speak this morning, and I really appreciate the opportunity for Australia to be able to share some of the cutting-edge innovations and best practices that we can explore and share some insights into how we develop a renewable energy sector globally. So just a bit of a background. I'm the Councillor for the Department of Industry, Innovation and Science, and I've been here for a year, and I've been very encouraged by the work India is undertaking to ensure that India and the global economy is in a better place to years to come because of a renewables agenda. This is ostensibly underpinned by the government's 175 gigawatt target renewables by 2030, but I'm equally heartened as I travel across the country and see some of the groundbreaking technologies, business models and investments that are being made to ensure that we reduce emissions and promote efficiency. I was reflecting on some of the comments that were made in the opening session, and I particularly liked the comment made by UAJ around we need to go from the few to the many. A lot of us know that our countries have strong research, we have the strong industry players, but it's a huge step change that's required when we tack the renewables agenda. And it requires a lot of change, and we know that the road to change is not always easy, and it does take some time. And I suppose if I'm going to boil it down to one key point in terms of the Australian context, I'd really say that tackling the renewables agenda really requires a period of transition. So I do have a slide deck. I don't know whether it's the wire's disconnected. Okay, I'll just keep going. For those of you who may know, Australia's electricity mix is predominantly comes from coal and gas, so fossil fuels, but recently we've had about 16% of that underpinned by renewables. And as my High Commissioner said this morning, by 2020 we want to see that jump to 23%. In recent years, renewables have increased their share of the energy mix, and over the last 5 years, more than 90% of new generation has come from solar and wind in particular. Next 20 years, we'll see a significant increase in cumulative installed capacity in Australia coming from renewables and reduced input from traditional fossil fuels. Of course, these are long-term trend predictions and do not account for the significant changes in technology and tariff rates. My High Commissioner spent a lot of time this morning talking about the federal renewable energy target, but it's definitely also the case that our states are charting different trajectories when it comes to renewables. And you may see from this slide that we have a number of states that have increased their renewables by share of their energy mix, and some have even committed to targets of net zero emissions by 2050. As you may have heard, Australia has undergone a significant and comprehensive energy review, with our Chief Scientist, Dr. Alan Finkel, releasing an independent review with some 50 recommendations covering affordability, reliability and sustainability. The Finkel review announced 5 key themes underpinning his 50 recommendations. They were about integrated grid planning, energy security obligations, empowering consumers, orderly transition, and establishing an energy security board to oversee the way the energy system works. While we take our international commitments seriously and are taking steps to reduce our global emissions, the Chief Scientist's report notes that energy policy and the way we go about transitioning to a cleaner energy platform and incentivising innovation must be considered against a wider backdrop of efficient transmission and distribution, competitive tariffs, effective transition from traditional fossil fuels so we can keep the lights on and also make sure that we manage peak times. In 2017, clean energy investment in Australia was highest on record at $11 billion, which placed Australia 7th of all countries in the world. We have underpinned this through a number of agendas, including the Clean Energy Innovation Fund, a $200 million fund to support early stage and emerging clean technologies. This is designed to support technologies such as hybrid solar generation and storage energy management systems, and scaling up the Internet of Things network focused on cutting energy use. In addition to supporting the renewable technologies of today, the government is also investing in the renewable energy technologies and infrastructure of the future. We fund, through the Australian Renewable Energy Agency and through our CSIRO, many Australian universities to undertake research projects to reduce costs, increase efficiency and create new breakthroughs. Investments in pumped hydro energy storage projects in Queensland and South Australia and Tasmania are also quite significant. This is all underpinned by a renewable energy target which has two components. The large-scale renewable energy target encourages new investment in large-scale renewable energy projects to find more than 100 kilowatts of installed capacity, and this is set at 330,000 gigawatt hours of additional renewable electricity generation by 2020. And then we also have the small-scale renewable energy scheme, which encourages small-scale renewable energy systems less than 100 kilowatts capacity, such as household solar and solar water heaters, and it's an uncapped scheme. Like India, Australia has incentivised the uptake of renewables through several initiatives like the Renewable Energy Target, a scheme designed to reduce emissions of greenhouse gases in the electricity sector by encouraging the additional generation of electricity from renewable sources. We do this through two main pieces of infrastructure: the Australian Renewable Energy Agency, which is underpinned by the Renewable Energy Agency Act 2011, and its mandate is to improve the competitiveness of renewable energy technologies and increase the supply of renewable energy in Australia. The government's key priorities are doubling the funding for research and development, prioritising technologies that will support electricity system security and reliability, and take account of expert sources when setting funding priorities. We also support the uptake of renewables through venture capital. So we have a large-scale fund to support emerging clean technologies, and it draws on ARENA's experience in the renewable energy sector and complements it by the Clean Energy Finance Corporation. This corporation has committed almost $50 million to support eight projects worth over $100 million in total. Such technologies include hybrid solar generation and storage energy and scaling up the Internet of Things. Now, I think a very important role in renewables and working towards reducing global emissions is energy efficiency. And I remember studying climate change policy as an undergraduate, and a lecturer of mine saying that he was quite interested in the way that Australian talked about climate change and renewables when we were all living in 4 or 5 bedroom homes with 3 bathrooms, and really thinking about the types of energy that we demand. And we've really tackled this through 3 main ways in Australia. Number one, through white goods and appliances. So Australia was one of the first countries to recognise the importance of energy efficiency and started by the STAR labelling program. And it brought in new standards and to reduce appliances' energy consumption, household power bills and the like. To date, standards under this Act have saved the average household between $140 and $220 on their electricity bill each year. From 2015 to 2020, the Act is estimated to have reduced Australia's emissions by at least 27 megatonnes, and that's the same as taking over 8 million cars off the road a year. We've also pursued energy efficiency mechanisms through green building design. So the Global Real Estate Sustainability Benchmark ranks the Australian real estate market as the world's greenest. Australian companies like the Green Building Council of Australia have forged strong partnerships with many counterparts in ASEAN, and we work together to accelerate the uptake of sustainable building practices in the world's economic powerhouse. In Australia, 2 rating tools are in common use: the design rating tool Green Star and the performance rating tool NABAR's Green Star. The third element of energy efficiency is electric vehicles. There were 2,300 electric vehicles sold in Australia in 2017, representing a 67% increase from the previous year. The number of electric vehicle models available for sale in Australia has also increased by 44% from 2016 to 2017. The number of charging stations in Australia has also substantially increased, with a 64% increase from 2017 to 2018. This currently equates to approximately one charging station for every 6 electric vehicles. Another point that my High Commissioner raised this morning was that we are strong believers that the game changer in renewables and electric mobility will come from advancements in storage technology, making renewables competitive with traditional fossil fuels, noting that we have already seen significant reductions in renewables prices. South Australia has the world's largest lithium-ion battery storage installation to reduce peak energy prices and support system stability. Australia is an ideal testing ground for innovative clean energy technology based on our world-class renewable energy resources, strong research and development, and positive investment climate. Investments in pumped hydro energy storage projects in Queensland and South Australia and Tasmania also support this initiative. Another point that I'd like to touch on, noting that this agenda is an international one, is that Australia is proud to share that we're working with India on several platforms, such as the Australia-India Energy Dialogue, where our Minister for Energy works with the Indian Minister for Energy on a number of working groups, including power and new and renewable energy, but also of the work that she highlighted this morning around our engagement with the International Solar Alliance. We congratulate India and France on the success of the ISA becoming an international organisation, in particular the vision of PM Modi of providing energy access and associated socio-economic benefits to a number of developing countries through solar technologies. We are now working through a robust work program for the ISA that covers a number of things, including affordable finance at scale, scaling solar applications for agricultural use, and scaling solar-supported e-mobility, and scaling solar rooftop. These are all going to be very important agendas, not just for India and Australia, but also through the countries between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn. And then I really just wanted to end with one slide, noting that we're a bit time poor today, saying that the renewables industry is not just one that we have to talk about in terms of power generation, but touches on a number of our sectors. And so, for instance, just last week, clean energy company Zen Energy approved a $700 million solar battery pumped hydro project in the South Australian town of Whyalla to power One Steel steelworks. Zen Energy has 50% stake owned by billionaire Sanjeev Gupta, and the new energy project, which will be the largest solar power storage investment in Australia, is intended to provide 1 gigawatt of additional dispatchable renewable energy assets to major industries on the Eyre Peninsula. We also see that the renewables sector can be a key input across a number of sectors like agriculture and resources.